Now, I don't usually do this, but it's Saturday night, I have one. I can't sleep. I'm up drinking coffee, so I'm going to make a second video. I'm making a second video because I want to explain a few things. I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. The first thing I want to say is about the incident in Tesco with your man catching me by the arm. I remember watching House of the Dragon, and they were out doing a stag hunt. They were out hunting this big white stag. They were out hunting this big white stag, which was a majestic stag, and it was, fabulous animal, but they were tracking this animal. So they tracked this animal for days, and they were sending word back to the king sitting in the fucking throne, sending word back to him, oh yeah, another day, another 2 days, we should have this stag, And I started looking at this, he's not out hunting the stag, but he went out the first day, and of course they carried him around in the chair, and he's out hunting the stag. But anyway, they said to him, if anyway, they have the stag, and then they bring the king out, and they hand him this special spear to kill the stag. But the stag is tied between two trees, so it's tied with ropes between the two trees, tied out from the back legs. The stag is completely immobilized. The stag is held in a position where it cannot attack the king. He's of no danger to the king. But then the king comes along and he sticks the spear in him, and then he sticks the spear in him again and rings out a spear, and everybody claps. And I just said to yourself, you fucking little old excuse for a man. The excuse for a man. The excuse for a man that this is your idea of taking down a stag, that the stag has to be tied up, trussed up, bound up in a way that he's of absolutely no danger to you, and then you come along and you stick the spear in him. It's the very same fucking thing. If you think about it, it is. But anyway. So that just explains why I was in such shock over that. Did you watch the video of Bishop Brennan? That's classic, because when I watched that, I was smoking a joint when I watched that the first time, and I laughed at it for 3 days solid. And I laughed at it again tonight. I laughed at it for about half an hour tonight when I watched it again. And you know what was so funny about it? Because I could relate to it. I knew exactly how Bishop Brennan felt. I knew exactly how he felt. I could relate to it. And that's what made it so funny, that, like, I can look back at it now and laugh now, but that was that. And that was a humbling experience, I can tell you. But, yeah, and what I was going to say in relation to that is how the fuck, I left me thinking afterwards, was with that level of micromanagement. You know what I mean? We have a procedure and a protocol to take your cock out for a piss, shake it before you put it back in, pull up your zip and wash your hands and leave the toilet. But there's a procedure and a protocol micromanaged to this extent. How can you expect that anybody, especially the lower animals, will develop a faculty of reason when they're micromanaged to this extent? And that's a very good question. But then again, in fairness to Tesco, I have to say, lower animals have to be farmed. Because I then went on, and when I was doing the bouncer training, they replaced all the toxic masculinity on the doors. In 2007, they started to take the hard men off the doors because they didn't want any more toxic masculinity, because the hierarchical system had evolved to a point where we won't have any more toxic masculinity because we don't want anybody a threat to our existence and our positions. So we want to eradicate all toxic masculinity in order to protect their own selfish interests. Anyway, so they decided to target all toxic masculinity that was on the doors and replace them with shirt fillers. But the thing was then, when I noticed that they were endangering the shirt fillers, because the shirt fillers had no procedures, no protocols, no experience, no fucking nothing, only a fucking little old license that they did half a day's training, with no escalation techniques, no de-escalation techniques, no experience, no training in regard to, what do they do in a battle incident? What do they do in a battle incident? They do the Dunning-Kruger syndrome. They run in all brave men, oh, this is my job, I'm going to tackle this, and they end up looking like Scarface for £9 an hour. A £9 an hour job in which you can be left looking like Scarface, or fucking get your bollocks knocked in, and your nose broke, and several other injuries for £9 an hour. Even Tesco was giving me £11 an hour, and there was absolutely no danger whatsoever. You know what I mean? A skilled job they were just given to shirt fillers to just well, they were exploiting the shirt fillers because they were doing in order to do the license, they were giving every sort of a shirt filler, an excuse for a man, every excuse for a man. I'm not going to go any further on the subject. We all know who I'm talking about. We all know the fannies. But yeah. But the ironic thing is, then I ended up writing the procedures and the protocols for the fannies, because I said to myself, fannies, you've no safe working environment here. You're not being provided with, like, this is the Health and Safety at Work Act 2005, which requires that you have to have a safe working environment. You have to be provided with a safe working environment, and you most certainly have not been provided with a safe working environment. You've been given no training in relation to the job, like relevant, like significant. You have not been given significant training to deal with the incidents that's involved, and that's because the people who wrote out a little bit of training, most of them never did a fucking door in their life. Never did a door in their life. They had no de-escalation techniques, did no escalation techniques, they didn't know how to talk to people. So therefore they were going to spark off incidents and endanger themselves through the fact that they didn't know how to talk to people. They had no de-escalation techniques, did no escalation techniques. I asked several of them, because I used to go around at the weekend and hand out the fucking cards from a union, my cards for a union. It was 2 quid a week. I wanted them to join a union and push for a safe working environment and push for decent rates of pay. Like when I was doing the bouncing, I was getting good money. Like I was getting good money, like cash. I was cash, but these fuckers were doing it for 9 quid an hour. But anyway. I went around when I was doing the doors and I said, what do you do in the event of a fire? What's your procedure in the event of a fire? And none of them had any procedures. They never walked the route. They never did a risk assessment. They never did any of these fucking simple basic safety requirements. That's for to provide any safe working environment. This is basic minimum to provide any safe working environment, and none of it was in place. None. I said, what the fuck do you do in the event of a fire? No answer. I hadn't even thought about it. Hadn't even considered it. So we now have a whole nightclub full of patrons, and in the event of a fire, no one has a fucking clue. And I said to them, who the fuck do you think they're going to look to in the event of a fire? They're going to look to the security. What are you going to do? Stand there with your fucking cock in your hand, your mouth open, not knowing what to do, like a fucking Egypt. But this is why I wrote the procedures and protocols for them. And I went around and I encouraged them to fucking learn this shit. But no. And I tried to explain to them that if you want to look after other people, and this is important, you must put yourself first. How can you look after anyone else if you can't look after yourself? As I said, if you haven't got the balls, now, even if you were never going to join the union, it's only important that the union is because they're too weak to stand alone. Like, I'd never had any problem asking for my fucking money. And I said, if you can't step up and ask for a decent rate of pay and decent training and decent working conditions, like putting these packets on the door of fucking chip shops which is suicide, because chip shops were suicide on their own, one man working in order to get the contract, because the chip shop didn't want to pay for two. But this is suicide. And everybody in the whole industry, even when it was full of hard men, we always said chippers are suicide. Everybody knows it's suicide. Everybody in the industry knows chippers are suicide. But that's what we used to call Supermax super slaps. We used to get a bag of chips to go down to super slaps to watch the fight. But I suppose as society got tamed and they did try to were more and more successful in eradicating the toxic masculinity, maybe the shirt fillers would suffice to do the doors. But in saying that, they killed the whole entertainment industry. But for several reasons, I won't go into that. Let's just stick to what I'm talking about. But they had so I had to write the procedures and protocols for them, but they had absolutely no interest in applying them or learning them or looking after themselves. Because as I said then at the end of it all, when I finished up in 2018 and went travelling, I said, you're not none of useless fucking bums. That's what you are. Useless fucking bums. You can't even fucking, no interest in fucking working on yourselves, no interest in anybody else, no interest in protecting anybody else, no interest in fucking excelling in your job, no interest, you're just used as fucking bums. And that's why the fucking, the Romans brought in bread and games, because that's all these fuckers need, is bread and games. UFC, soccer, and fucking, and bread. Here's fucking £9 an hour to buy some bread. So bread and games, that's Panem et Circenses. And that's Panem et Circenses is to appease and distract the masses from while we run shit. But that's all that's needed for these fucking wasters. That people who have absolutely no interest in working on themselves or even in the interest of others, working in the interest of others. They just want their bread and games. But of course, this is the wool and lamb chops. This is the wool and lamb chops, isn't it? And the people will take the wool and lamb chops, but I have nothing against the wool and lamb chops. But if you're going to farm lower animals, I will say one thing. And if I'm in a position again where I have to farm lower animals, the least you can do is farm these lower animals humanely. Give them a safe working environment. Don't, okay, have the fucking wool and lamb chops, but at least farm them humanely. Give them decent working conditions and decent pay. Let them buy good, decent bread and games. And give them the procedures and protocols. Because you have to give them the procedures and protocols, I suppose, if they're not interested in developing a faculty of reason. Or if they're not prepared to work on themselves or push themselves in a direction or any direction that they can't even motivate themselves to move in any direction, to even work on themselves to any degree, well then they have to be farmed. I suppose we can't just kill them we have to accommodate them but then they have to be farmed, which is they need procedures and protocols, but then they don't develop a faculty of reason. But you see, then when somebody like me ends up in a position where you're being micromanaged to this extent, what do you do then? Because when you're in this situation, you have no opportunity to develop a faculty of reason. Well, I'll tell you exactly what you do. I stood at the trash compactor one night with two fellas from Tesco. And it was my job to pick the papers up off the floor, 5 o'clock in the morning, pick the papers up off the floor and put them in the trash compactor. So I had my big collection of papers and I put them in the trash compactor along with two other fellas. And I turned to one fella and said, "How long are you here?" And he says, "Oh, I'm here." He said, "I came here," he said, in whatever year, 15 years ago. He said, "I'm here 15 years. He said, "I'm off it closed." He said, "And I came here for a couple of weeks just to get back on my feet." That was 15 years ago. I said, "Jesus." Turned to the fellow, "How long are you here?" He said, 17 years. He said, "I came here when such a place closed," he said, "and I just came here till I can get back on my feet, and I'm still here 17 years later." And I says, "I see. Well, I bid ye good night, gentlemen. Mind yourselves now. You look at yourselves. Yeah, bye." And I sailed straight out to the gate at the bottom of the yard. I didn't even go to the door. I sailed straight out to the gate at the bottom of the yard, and I never looked back. And that's what is necessary. And I didn't fucking say to myself, "Oh, I need to pay the rent. Oh, I need this job." I just said to myself, "I'm not staying here. Fuck this. And fuck the consequences." This is what you call throwing yourself into the abyss. Taking your balls in your hand and fucking taking a jump. At least taking a jump. Having the courage to live. The courage to live. And that's the first step in developing a faculty of reason, and to step out from these micromanagement positions and starting to think for yourself. You have to address the fears. You have to overcome the fears. And there can't be a safety net. You don't get a safety net. You don't get a safety net. This is like, you have to, if you have a safety net, there's no courage required. Do you understand? There's no courage required if you have a safety net. But you have to be able to say to yourself, "Here, I'm going to fucking take a chance. I'm fucking leaving here. And wherever we go from here, let this be let this be the beginning. But this is the start of series. But I was just explaining to someone else last night. Then when you, even in the event that you do end up homeless, this is where you learn the real coping mechanisms. This is where you learn the survival instincts. This is where you learn to control those animal instincts, those in those primaveral instincts, these instinctual drives. And this is where you learn how to use them. Because I'm not saying to suppress these instinctual drives, but learn how to control them and learn how to use them and learn how to challenge them, channel them. Use your libido for to drive your ambition. Good morning. I may go. Bye.